Hey everybody, it's Shisha here from SalesforceWay.com. Today we're going to have a quick jump start with using Visual Studio Code. We're going to cover how to interact with static org and how to interact with the stretch org. Let's dive in. The first thing we're going to mention is that before using Visual Studio Code, there are some prerequisites you have to do. Of course, for example, you need to install the Visual Studio Code in your laptop or in your PC, and then you can install the Salesforce official plugins. I have made a video before. You can click the information button or down below in the video description. It tells you what kind of plugins are useful in Visual Studio Code for Salesforce developers. And in addition to that, we also need to install the Oracle Java Development Kit. Now, I recommend everybody to start using the latest version, at least version 11, because in the past time, only the version 8 was supported, but now all the newer versions is ready to go. In addition to that, we also need to install the SFDX, the Salesforce CLI, in your local environment. If you haven't done that, I also have made another video talking only about SFDX, how to install that, what are the cool features, and what the commands are about that tool. So definitely head over to check what information you have in that video. I put it down below in the description. With all these prerequisites out of the way, let's start to play with Visual Studio Code. Okay, so now we are in my laptop. I'm gonna fire up the Visual Studio Code, and the next step is to hit the Ctrl-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P in Mac to pop up the window. So the first step we're gonna do is click the SFDX Create Project with Manifest. What does it mean is that you create a local project with a package.xml file, because we are now trying to interact with the static org, either those developer sandbox environment or those free developer edition environment. So let's play with this manifest. What it does, ask static org test, ask the project name, ask the folder, then I just say create the project. I put myself here. So you can see it spin up the folder with all the default subfolders, some subfolders. Basically, it's the empty project folder, and you can see it contains the manifest, which contains a default package.xml. The package.xml contains a lot of default information. It means we're gonna interact with the static org with the package.xml content. So the first step we need to do is to authenticate into a static org. What I'm gonna do here is to interact with my developer free edition I registered in Salesforce environment. So let's say authorize is called SFDX authorize org. And here you can select what URL is the login page. In my case, it's the login.salesforce.com. I hit enter. I give it an alias name, which is the nickname for this environment. Later we're going to interact with the default one. Just go OK for me. Now it pop up my default browser, and I'm going to enter my username and password. I'm going to hit OK. And now I'm successfully authenticated in. Now I don't really need to keep the window open, because if I close it now, we hit back to the Visual Studio Code, we can see that it says things are successfully done. You can close the browser now. So I hide the window. So now the static org is authenticated. What I'm going to do now, because that developer free edition I just registered this morning, so it's a free thing. If I now try to retrieve all the source from that org, there was one class file, the Apex class file I created just now. So now what I assume is that that class file will be downloaded into this project. Let's see what happens. So let's refresh. Let's go to class. It's this file. It's called a static org file. As you can see, it's already downloaded here. So this is how we interact with static org. A lot of people need to fine-tune in the settings here. One of the most important features a lot of people want is to, when they save a metadata file, they want it automatically to push the changes into the cloud. How to do that in Visual Studio Code? Let's come back here to the Apex file. If I change anything, I hit save, nothing happens. That's what we need to change is we go to the .visual studio VS Code folder, click the settings, and the first line is about push or deploy on save. It's by default false. If you put true, which means, and hit save, we close it. Now when we change the file, for example, delete this empty line and now hit save, automatically Visual Studio Code would say push this change to the cloud. Let's now hit save. You can see a pop-up window and then it pushes the change to the environment. How cool is that? So this is the feature we can do. Alternatively, if you don't want this feature, I personally don't need it to all the time push the environment. You can right click on the file. There is a retrieve or deploy. So this is specific to this file or to the folder. If you hit on the folder, right click, you have all the same thing. So this is how to interact with a static org. It's very simple. After authenticating with the static org, basically it's just like the old story. You push or retrieve your metadata. It's exactly the same way as how we did it in the old time. It's like using the Force.com IDE or use the Maven's Mate. It's as simple as that. So the next step I want to introduce is to use the Scratch org. Let's close the folder. Now let's hit Ctrl-Shift-P or Command-Shift-P. We now use this SFDX create project. We don't use the with manifest anymore. Since now we create a project, let's say Scratch org test, and then we save in this folder is fine. Now it spin up a project with default files. Here in this default files in the folder of the project, there's no folder called manifest anymore. We don't need the manifest. We don't need that package.xml file when we negotiate, when we authenticate and interact with the Scratch org. This is the new thing you need to remember. So since we're talking with Scratch org, the first thing we need to do is to dev hop. So SFDX authorize a dev hop. If you don't know what dev hop is, basically it's an environment that allows us to spin up different Scratch orgs. So what do we really mean? That's authenticated pop-up. So it goes to a static org. I will use the same static org. I will authenticate myself in. Here, one thing we do need to check is that this hop, this dev hop or this static org has the dev hop. We go to the settings page, we click the dev hop window, and there's enable dev hop. There's a toggle here. Make sure this toggle is enabled. This makes sure that our static org allows us to spin up the dev hop, the Scratch org. So since this is already enabled for me, I don't need to do anything anymore. I just close the window. So now I already have authenticated successfully with a dev hop. Now what we can do is we can spin up Scratch org. Let's say Scratch org. You can see it's got to create a Scratch org, and it locates to a Scratch org definition file. The default one already, the folder already contains the default one, it's fine, and it gives a nickname, an alias name. So the default one is fine for me, and then the day. The day means how many days after how many days the Scratch org is gonna expire. 7 days by default is fine for me. I just hit enter, then let's move forward. It takes maybe 20 seconds to spin up a Scratch org. It's so much faster than the static org. If you need to spin up a developer sandbox, you know how long time that would take, right? So now the scratch org is ready for me to use. What I can do is I can say open a default org. Oh, sorry, open default org. Ooh. Hit here. Then the browser will open this scratch org for me. Okay, if you want to open a scratch org, this is the way how to open it. Let's swap back here. What we can do, for example, I want to create a Apex file in the local scratch org test. Again, scratch org test. Create a file. This file is just fine for me. Then I'm gonna come here. Yeah, this is the difference in if you're working with a scratch org. What you can do is you hit Control Shift P again. There's a push. That will push all the source in this folder to the default scratch org. I will select that. Now it will go to the force-app to find all the subfolders and all the metadata inside, and then push the changes, push all the metadata files to the scratch org. Now I have only one Apex file, so this file is sending to the scratch org. Okay, as simple as that. And of course, you can pull all the source from the scratch org. So this is how we interact with scratch org. It's very similar, but here we don't need the package.xml file. So this is how to use Visual Studio Code to interact with different type of org. It can be static org, it can be scratch org, so it depends on your project type. So this is all I'm gonna talk with you, but definitely still head over back to the SFDX video down below in the video, because in that video I talked different stuff, the fundamental stuff, how to use the SFDX and what does it mean, to interact with a dev hub or interact with the static org or interact with the scratch org, because those things are fundamental. When you hit errors, when you are using Visual Studio Code, you will easily spot what was the cause of the error. Those things are really helpful in the long term when you do troubleshooting and when you interact with different type of work. So that's the end of the video. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you really enjoyed the video, hit the like button. If you want to join our big SalesforceWay family, hit the subscribe button. And don't forget to hit the bell button if you don't want to miss any update in this channel.